So let's talk also a little bit about the value of these high barrier to entry markets, and what does it do for the industry and what does it do for society. It's also a good indication of the trends of where we're going. So above the line here, I've identified several of the markets that we go after that we consider high barrier to entry. And if you take a look at it, a lot of it comes from the military that starts off with a lot of these research and developments that move into avionics and sometimes back into the military and the industrial and medical. But there's a lot of good innovation that comes out of that eventually comes to the consumer and to society. If you look at the very first computers, where did it come from? Well, it came from the military trying to simulate nuclear wars and what would happen, and they created the computer, the whole concept of the computer. The internet, it was a communications mean with the military, and that created the internet, which eventually evolved, and that became something that all of us use today. The microwave, gaming, we used to, what started the gaming? Well, it was flight simulators, whether it be for the avionics market or the military market, creating simulation tools. That helped also fuel a lot of the innovation in the gaming market. So a lot of what we do today, although you don't hear about it in these high value and high barrier markets, ends up eventually being commercialized, finding ways to make it much cheaper, but that's what ends up coming into the consumer market as well. So robotics, cell phones, material development, a lot of that comes from the focus on these high barrier to entry markets. So they do have social value to us as well. So what are the trends we see in these markets today? Well, today what we see focusing on these markets are three key items. One is the need for lower power. And everywhere we go, it's about low power, or power management. Whether it be in satellites that need to be in orbit for really long times, whether it be with soldiers carrying equipment, power is key, and we'll talk more about those when we get to specific markets. Security is also becoming more and more important, and we'll talk about that, and reliability. Here I'm referring to it as SEU, but there are reliability phenomena related to semiconductors as they shrink in geometry, where there are what we refer to as heavy ions that come from space, and they can flip the state of semiconductor components. And if you're not familiar with it, the simplistic way to think about it is there are heavy ions today that hit the Earth, that hit us. We're sitting in this room today. They can switch a transistor in CMOS to flip its state, but the issue is, in the past, our CMOS devices and our junctions and our gate oxides were too big to flip. Today, they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. These heavy ions have not changed in size, and now we're starting to see a trend where semiconductor, as we shrink technology, also is susceptible to these events. That's what we're referring to as reliability. So these are trends that we're seeing in these high barrier to entry markets, and I'll talk a little bit about those specifically. So defense and security markets. Electronic content is growing in the defense and security markets. Foreign military sales are up. Everybody's trying to protect their know-how of what they're selling as far as foreign military sales. So having more security, anti-tamper, anti-cloning is becoming really important when it comes to defense and security markets. So vendors and people and companies that can develop technology to support anti-tamper and anti-cloning or overbuilding is becoming important as well. So investing in those types of innovation and technology, you're investing in how to go solve problems for high barrier to entry markets. Also power in this market. We talked about the advanced soldier. Do you want your soldier to have as much electronics as possible to protect himself, to save lives? Well, the longer your equipment lasts in the field, the longer your soldier can stay out on their missions, or the more that they can have advancements to help them to make sure they're saving lives as well, versus carrying batteries in your pockets. So clearly that's another trend we see, and anybody that can go and solve the issues of power, again, you're bringing something that can allow you to go into high barrier to entry markets with a power type solution. If you look at the medical market as well, content is growing. Portability requirements in medical systems. Here in India, there's a big push to help as far as helping rural areas and getting medical aid, medical support. You can't haul big equipments that are in hospitals today out to the rural areas. So lots of stuff, even when you go into a standard hospital room today, it's all portable. You take it off, you go use it. There's no wires hanging everywhere. So solving the power issues in high barrier to markets, also in the medical market for portability, is key. So companies that are targeting this market and they want to get into these high value and high barrier to entry markets, solving power concerns is important as well. That supports the annuity curve. And clearly reliability, image recognition, we're seeing lots of that as well.